Now, I don't really enjoy doing that, and generally when people get in trouble, they're wandering off alone on the trail. So, number one rule, stay with the group. I have to see you at all times. It is my job to keep you safe and get you back to the end of the trail in one piece. Alright? So, that being said, you don't need to be sheeple and come right up to me, but it's just make sure I can see you, make sure you're having a good time. I'm here to take care of you guys. That's my biggest job, is to make sure you guys have a good time out here and see some animals. But I just have to make sure that we're safe while we're doing that. Now, if we do come across an aggressive bear, we're going to have to sacrifice the smallest. So I think you're it.
I have my running shoes on.
Don't run over there.
Well, yeah, you don't have to outrun a bear. You just have to outrun your buddy. That's why you wear your tennis shoes bear hunting, right? But now, in reality, what we need to do is if we get really close to an animal, we just stick together in a group and we don't start yelling, bear, 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 because if we do that, he's going to run away. I'm not so much worried about a bear attacking us as much as scaring him away and not being able to see him. Because what we're here is to observe the animals in their natural habitat.
Rainforest walk. Looking for bears. He's walking behind us because he's making sure we don't get eaten.
Just about every plant you see out here has some sort of use. Back in the days before the white man got here and the natives were living in the area, this was their pharmacy. This is their doctor's office. So just about every plant you see has an edible, or you got the speed slime underneath, we got the protective slime, then we got the sensory slime up in front. They can live up to 6 years old, which is kind of interesting. Not a good species to be a male, because you get done mating and the female will eat off the male organs. That's the end of that. But imagine you had a pacifier when you were a kid, back 200-300 years ago, before they had pacifiers. There you go. Back in the day, the slime has numbing qualities, so they'd put it on the gums of the babies when they were teething. So I was saying hello. See a little nostril, but yeah, that's a little tiny one. They get a lot bigger than that. But oh, he's trying to move. These are the stage fright. Big root system coming up like that. It's called a long-legged hemlock, and that's not unique to hemlocks. It could be spruce or cedar or anything else. What happened? There was an old stump. That's how most of our trees actually start, is on old dead trees. When they fall down, the new ones grow out of them. They're called nurse logs. But it grew on a stump, put roots down into the ground, and then spread out, and the old log decayed from around it. You can see all that red dirt in there. That's part of the old red cedar that it grew on. 6, 7 years. Have a little dirty hole in the ground, or some are going to build a big mossy nest that's nice. So it just depends on the bear. But like I say, we're gonna see a bear den farther on, an actual old den. So we'll talk more about that when we get there. But I just wanted to show you that, and that's the only place, besides a couple overhanging cliffs, that you'll find dry environment in southeast Alaska. It rains so much.
Nervous because he's got nice, but he's stick away. We're safe now. Up here on the suspension bridge to watch. First bear. Suspension bridge at the moment, and people are rushing to join it. Hence the bouncing. suspension bridges we came across. The bears are just down there, about 20 feet below us. This is not zoomed in. The salmon are coming up, which is why you see a lot thrashing and spawning, which is what they do as they spawn, and then they die. There's another suspension bridge.
Too big a step for him.
I wanted to fall in. Like that. Thank you.
Quite a good technique.
There's your mum. These are spawning at the moment when they're thrashing themselves around, because this is where they lay their eggs and then they die. So all those dead ones have done their job and all those thrashing are about to be dead. These fish would be about 2.5 to 3 feet long, just to give you an idea. On footage. Now let's see him try. Only going to swim up there to be eaten by a bear. Why would you bother? He's right on the other side. I'm having to be very careful again, and he's watching us as we walk because we are now back down almost at the level of the bears. And they are very quick. Probably only about 30 feet from us. Fresh bear traps.
Just to remind you of the safety stuff, we're doing really good today to make sure we stay with the group, and I'll hopefully tell you a little bit more information about them. Find it interesting, hopefully. And once again, if you have any questions about anything, it doesn't have to be about bears. It can be about, I can't even begin to scratch the surface about this place, about the flora and fauna. So, ask questions on it. You see one real long scratch mark back here, back behind it here. Mostly that's from bear cubs. Now, black bears are the only kind of bear in North America, and I believe the world. I'm not sure on that one, but at least North America, that can climb trees. And that's one of their really good defense mechanisms, because brown bears eat black bears. So climb a tree, you get away from a brown bear, because you can't climb trees. But that is one of the first and one of the most fundamental lessons that a cub will learn, is how to climb trees. Because in addition to brown bears eating black bears eat black bears. The males will eat the sows and cubs, right? Or will eat the cubs. And well, there's one big reason for that. First of all, they're hungry, because in the spring when they first come out. But also, you get a big male bear, he's interested in 3 things in life. That's food, sleeping, and sex. And that's it. That's all they really care about. You notice that the work isn't one of those. They're pretty lazy. But if the sow is nursing, it's not in heat. So you get rid of the cub, it'll go back into heat. And you know what the males want. So, end result, cubs climb trees, and they climb trees really well. How that happens is when they're really young, the sows will chase them up through a tree and puff their neck up, and their hackles are raised, and they'll start growling. And I don't know if you ever heard a black bear growl, but it's not like you hear in the movies. It's this really high-pitched whine, kind of like between a dog growling and a pig squealing. It's just this horrible sound. And they start popping their teeth, and they charge their cubs, and the cubs don't know what's going on. And so they come up, and they hit the tree, and they try to go up, and you can see these long scratch marks coming down. As they come up, and they slide down the tree, and they keep that over it, and they keep slamming that into them until finally, all they have to do is give them the mom look. And I'm pretty sure most of you know what that one is. They'll just look at them funny, and they grow right up the tree. So that's when that training is over, is when they can get the look, and they'll go right up. So that's one of the defense mechanisms, and we call these babysitter trees. I don't know if you saw, but that cub, when we first started seeing him, he jumped on the tree and almost was going to go up, and then he came back down. That's one of the babysitter trees. And a lot of times, because, well, first of all, it's hard to keep track of the cubs when you're fishing, and sometimes the sows just don't want to deal with them anymore, so they send them up a tree. They call them babysitter trees. And I go fishing, so if you see a cub in the tree, you probably don't want to be around there, because the sow is probably not too far away. But a lot of times, even the big bears, a 300-pound bear will be 150 feet up in a tree. He'll just be sleeping. So you look for the Mickey Mouse ears. You look for the legs drooped over the branches. They'll sleep there over the night. So kind of cool. They're tree climbing little guy when they're way back and grabbed the hind quarter of a moose and just ran away with it. Just in this, it weighs 300, 150, 200 pounds, and just run into the tundra. This big old brown bear, things just flopping. You can hardly pick that thing up on your back, and the brown bear just picks it up like it's nothing and goes away with it. So they're incredibly powerful. This is an old bear den, pretty well out of use. Probably 20 or 30 years out of use, but it gives you an idea of what they are. And they're not, like I mentioned before, they're not these big caves in the side of the mountain. Normally, bears will den up over about 1,000-foot elevation, because down at this level of snow, it rains and it snows, it freezes and it snows, it slushes and it snows, and the snow level goes up and down all year. You get up about 1,000 feet, it's that much colder that it will just seal them in, and there they are. And so I mentioned about them recycling their urine and them constipating themselves in the fall so they don't go to the bathroom. But I mentioned a little bit about the birthing, so we're going to keep talking about cubs. Now, I mentioned before that they give birth when they're sleeping. Now, I'm sure that some of you here probably could appreciate that. They basically go to sleep and they wake up in the spring with 2-3-month-old cubs. Now, the way that bears give birth and they gestate is actually quite interesting. You're going to find that humans, the way we the way we reproduce is actually pretty rare in nature, because what we have is opposable thumbs. That's what we have as a defense mechanism, is we are able to help each other in our own species. Nature, there's no safety catch. There's no hospital for bears to go to. There's no bear midwife. So there's things that a bear has in its biology that help with the birthing. Now there's something that bears have. It's called delayed implantation. One of the few times in nature you can be kind of pregnant. It doesn't happen in college, unfortunately, but it happens to bears. You can be kind of pregnant, right? So what it is the gestation period of a bear is about 2 months, roughly, give or take, given light, given food, given a set of circumstances. But they mate in June, but they give birth around New Year's. 2-month gestation. Doesn't really take a math major, that's not exactly adding up. And so what happens is the sow is mated, and she might have more than a dozen different male hosts in the space of a week-long mating season, but there's a term for that as well, but we'll just not go there. Let's just say when you only got a week in the year, you might as well use it. But the sperm and the egg connect right away, and they form a little embryo called a zygote, and then it goes dormant. And they actually sit in the fallopian tubes. They don't come to the uterus yet. They sit up in the fallopian tubes, and they're dormant, dormancy period. And then right about the time they go into hibernation, around November, a couple of those little embryos will implant in the side of the uterus, and the rest of them will slough off. And there you go, you have 1 or 2 or 3 cubs. So more than likely, if you see more than 1 cub in a litter, they're going to have different paternal genes. Zipliners. Tree monkeys. There's actually paintball guns up here. If you're wondering about if they scare the bears away, no, they do not scare the bears away. They're maybe a bit of an annoyance to the rest of us sometimes, but I don't know, they're having fun. But anyway, where was I here? The
1, 2, or 3.
1, 2, or 3 cubs. Yeah, they're gonna have more than one paternal gene. So paternity tests among bears would be horrible. But I guess that's the way of it. And so as you're starting to see more and more, there's absolutely no connection between the male and the cub. They're in there for the mating, and that's it. That's all they really care about.
Is it also dependent on their weight and how much food they've taken in?
Absolutely, especially food. Absolutely. And that's the other thing about this delayed implantation, is that usually the first litter is going to be 1. They're usually going to have 1 the first time. But if the food is really good, like a year like this year, the cubs next year, there might be litters of 2 or 3 or 4. Now usually only 2 will survive out of any, if there's more than that, because it's just too much competition between cubs and different things. But usually only 2 will survive. But yeah, exactly. And also if the sow is wounded or didn't have enough to actually support a cub through the winter, it won't have cubs at all. They'll all slough off. So it's a regulatory process. So pretty cool. Pretty
so
cool
what's
stuff.
the
Zip lining
most
is up there.
Females will wake up briefly to take care of the umbilical cord in the afterbirth. But after that, they go right back to sleep. And the cubs are about the size of a pop can. They're born blind, they're born hairless, and they finish developing outside of the womb. Because the 2-month gestation is not very long. That's real short. They're about that big. And they come out and they just find the nipple and start nursing, and they wake up, they're about 10 pounds. Little black balls of peach fuzz. And they're little bitty things running around in the spring. And the males, well, they, oh, no problem. They wake up every 2 or 3 weeks and they start walking around. That is not the time to come across them, because they haven't eaten in 3 months, and they're hungry and they're tired and they've been constipated for 3 months. So they're not all that friendly. A few dry places in this part of the world. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about survival, because if you're ever in the woods of Southeast Alaska, you need to know how to start a fire. No question about it. And it's saved my life, knowing this little bit of information. So if you ever need to start a fire, and this doesn't just go for Southeast Alaska, Vancouver is the same thing, or anywhere that it rains a lot. You find an old dead tree that's overhanging, and this is bone dry, and it will actually never get wet until the tree falls down. So you could start a fire, you start a fire right down at the base in there, and you get a fire going anywhere. So a bit about hypothermia. Has anybody ever had hypothermia? Wrong, you've all had hypothermia. Anybody had the shivers?
Yeah.
Uncontrollable shivers, that is stage 1 hypothermia. You're going to be okay. But it goes in a series of stages. Stage 1, or stage 2, stage 3, and it goes, and then you're dead. But that is the #1 killer of people up here. Drowning's pretty close, but hypothermia kills a lot of people. And I've had a couple brushes with it. It does different things to different people. When I was 14, I flipped my boat and I went in the water for an hour. That is a long time to be in the water in Alaska. And I was stage 3 hypothermic when they got me out. And I was seeing things, and I was falling asleep. And you actually, once you get below 88 degrees, you actually stop feeling cold and you start feeling warm. You're kind of this lukewarm. You're just sleepy. That's all there is to it. Somebody heard us yelling from the beach, came out and got us, and we got out in an hour. It was 8:30 to 9:30 at night. So that was a close one. And I can tell you the worst part was warming up. You are cold for a week, and it hurts. You ever had your hands cold and they burn when they're warming up? That's your whole body for a couple of days. And you're just cold. So I don't recommend it. But so hypothermia. That's another good thing to know how to treat. Because a lot of times people who are hypothermic aren't able to get to a hospital. They're out in the middle of nowhere. So say that you're driving along in your boat and you find somebody floating in the water that's almost dead. That's stage 3 hypothermic. What do? What is the very first thing you do? Take your wet clothes off. Absolutely. Water will kill you twice as fast. All right. After you get them dried off, what do? Or first, I should say this: what don't you do? What's the worst thing you could do to someone?
Don't put heat on them.
Yes and no. Don't put them in a hot shower. That is the very worst possible thing you could do to somebody with stage 3 hypothermia, because it will probably kill them from shock. So what you do is you do it very slow. Very slow is the name of the game. Heat is in a hot water bottle. If you put a lukewarm hot water bottle, you warm the core up first. You don't warm the extremity. You warm the core up first, and you put them in a blanket. And you have them drink not super hot liquid, but nice lukewarm liquid. Never alcohol. Try to avoid coffee. Just like hot, warm, warm water, something like that. But if it really comes down to it, you have to stay alive. Skin-to-skin contact is the best way to warm somebody up in a hurry. Crawl into a sleeping bag naked. Well, I can think of a couple situations that wouldn't be such a bad thing, but honestly, in Alaska, you can let your imagination go wild, but it's not going to be a Baywatch experience. It's because you're going to get picked out of the water by an old fisherman, and he hasn't showered in 3 weeks, and he's going to proceed to put you in a sleeping bag, take his clothes off, and get in with you. So, not as exciting as it sounds. But I guess you got to stay alive.